Good evening. Tonight we're going to do an analysis of Cyrano de Bergerac, the 1950 version with Jose Ferrer. And I will share my screen so we can get started. All right. So here we go. And let's describe the overall story very briefly. Anybody want to? Don't have that many people here, so you want to take a stab?
Nick, you're here, aren't you? Have we heard your voice yet?
Oh yeah, good timing on asking for my voice.
Yeah.
I'm going to remember that, Sandy.
Oh, I expect you to. I expect you
Next time I speak up earlier.
to. Yeah.
Well, I did go a little bit back and forth, but I think it was just really kind of to keep Roxanne happy. It seems like what everyone is doing, and I wanted to first say woo Roxanne is what everyone was involved in, or anyone of some consequence. But the OS seemed to me very downplayed in this show, if it's not that. And so I went with keeping Roxanne happy.
Okay, can you expand that a little bit to include the environment or something? It's just a,
yeah.
Where is it? When is it? What's happening in the world?
Okay. Yeah. Keeping a courtly maiden romantic happy in mid 1600s France.
Okay, well, how about, so what are rather than focusing on Roxanne, I mean, I would, and since it's an overall story through line, I'd probably just say a beautiful maiden, or whatever you want to call her.
Yeah.
Right. So maybe something like multiple suitors vie for the hand of a beautiful maiden during a time of war in 1600s France or something.
Yeah, that works.
Okay. I mean, because it is a whole bunch of different people. It's not just Cyrano and Christian. Multiple suitors. Beautiful woman.
The face that launched 1,000 swords.
Okay, so multiple suitors vie for the hand of a beautiful woman in 1600s France during a time of war. Because that kind of, sets the conflict, and with all of the different parties are all kind of involved in some regard to swordsmanship and participating in a war or not. Okay, and who do we have as our main character?
Cyrano.
I think it would be Cyrano.
All right. I mean, the title of the film is a hint. It needn't be. There is a movie called Roxanne.
Mm-hmm. Where Cyrano arguably is the main character in that movie, but Roxanne is
right. That's why I was saying that having it called Cyrano de Bergerac is a hint, but it's not necessarily guaranteed. Okay, right. So Cyrano, and who do we have as the influence character?
Oh, well, I don't want to hog all the voice act parts.
Well,
so.
That's right. Shout out, Jim. I would think it would be Roxanne. It just seems like the relationship we care about the most is between Cyrano and Roxanne. And
well, we have a three-way here, right?
Yeah, Christian,
Mhm.
right? So you've got Cyrano, Roxanne, and Christian.
right.
And where is the tug of war?
Well, that's a good question.
Where is the change character?
Roxanne changes. Roxanne because she talks about how she was very vain, or at the outset. Yet she's grown to love Cyrano's soul, or Christian's soul. So she's the one who Cyrano seemed to remain steadfast, right? Whereas Roxanne, the impact character, maybe changed.
So I think both Roxanne and Christian change.
Right,
I'm
because
sorry,
Christian,
Cyrano didn't change. Cyrano
Yeah.
remained steadfast, whereas the other two both changed. Yeah.
yeah, and I mean, the fact that Roxanne, at what point in the movie does Christian die? I mean, it's
It's like at the third act turn. So it's close to the end. It's a weird timing for it because it kind of kills the drama toward the end, because the end is basically the last long
right
scene of him, getting set up and murdered, and then her finding out that he was the one that she fell in love with, even though she never really, knew it.
Yeah.
So recognition of that's the one that she was always in love with, but not really realizing it.
Right.
But Christian, he's the one who, literally, changes to the point where he says he takes his place. He takes Cyrano's place going out and scouting the enemy, and of course gets shot because of that and dies.
Yeah.
Because he's just, he's not as skilled as Cyrano is.
but he still kind of adopts the worldview of Cyrano. So in that sense,
absolutely.
So he has
No,
a
he
paradigm
does.
shift. Yeah, he becomes more like him, and so that makes sense. I mean, can it be said that it then hands off to Roxanne at that point?
It could. My only argument against Roxanne is that she I mean, it's really it's kind of a little cliche. At the end, she doesn't sort of profess her love for Cyrano. She just sort of realizes, oh, you're the one that I've always you're the one who represents that ideal,
Right.
but doesn't really embrace him as. I mean, she cries for him. She's sad. They're best friends though, and they've been friends forever.
Right.
So it's just.
So she does say my love, and she does say that she's only loved one man but grieved twice.
Right. Well, she never really. Yeah, it's just.
But I agree with you. It's not.
It's kind of like she's the proxy at the end for the last act, but it seems kind of forced because she doesn't earn it. I mean, she's always wanted that romantic person as her, that's always been the one that she's been in love with. And Christian looked the part, but he never was the part. I mean, from the very get-go. And so I think that's why, she didn't change what she wanted or what she thought. She just realized, oh, it's in a different person. Her ideal was there, but as Cyrano says, pretty early on, it's like, with your looks and my brain, we could make one good lover, or whatever the phrase. That's paraphrasing. So I'll put Roxanne in there. That's fine. I mean, we'll see if it holds up later on. And then what about the relationship? What is the relationship between Cyrano and Christian?
Wow.
Conspirators for love.
Well, they're what, fellow soldiers?
Yeah, but I think in the subjective story, I think conspirators, in love or for love that's a pretty good, I think that's a good description.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make one more active than the other. It is a partnership.
Mhm.
Very nice, Nick, who didn't want to talk.
I was thinking the same thing.
All right, so let's start answering some of these story forming questions. For the main character dynamics, main character resolve, change, or steadfast. This is regarding our main character, who is Cyrano de Bergerac. So is Cyrano a change or steadfast character, and why? How do we know?
Well, he's loved her from the beginning. He loved her at the end, and he really didn't change his attitude towards. He was both a lover and a fighter from the beginning to the end, and that seemed to, remain the same.
Who believed he was smarter than everybody else. I mean, well, the one thing that was established in that opening scene with the duel and all that stuff is he believed that his
Right.
his wordplay and his opinions are all superior
Right.
to everybody else's, right?
Right. He was a perfect person except for his nose, right? So, if it weren't for that nose.
But from a main character perspective, yes. So, but what does the nose represent for him?
The nose represents.
I mean, I'm agreeing. I'm just, at the end, he's still, he's delirious and such.
Yes.
But he still doesn't necessarily think he's worthy, right?
Right.
He reacts badly to attacks on his nose because he's very sensitive to attacks on his nose for a number of reasons, probably. But and that sensitivity is there initially, and the sensitivity is there at the end. It actually arouses him to his final fight against the skeleton of death and cowardice and vanity as his imagined foes.
Right. And I think that's an excellent description of sort of how he, just is that component. It keeps him, going and going through the entire story, even, sort of spitting in the face of death. But it also keeps him, in some ways, away from his love, both when he is. I mean, he's near proximity, but he doesn't think he can get closer than that. So he doesn't sort of come to accepting that as a, getting past it, so to speak. So that's one of the reasons why he's not a changed character,
Right.
is there's this, this issue that he's dealing with, and he's pretty much stays the course on that the whole time.
Yes.
And then, and we talked about, how Christian, he pretty much, realizes that, he changes in that he was someone who basically was just looking, he really liked her.
He was
for
a
her
pretty
love.
boy.
Yeah, and he liked pretty girls.
Yeah.
It's kind of like he's very superficial.
Right.
And
Beach blanket bingo.
pardon?
Beach blanket bingo. He could have been in one of those movies.
Oh, right. But then he he changes, and he comes to appreciate the gravitas and the true feelings and the importance of those, and puts her interests above his own, which is where you have Cyrano all the time is putting his own interests above, her interests above his own.
Right.
So he adopts that same position. Okay, so that's good. That just sort of just confirms what we were talking about. All right, main character approach, a doer or a beer? This is Cyrano.
Doer, I would say. The whole first scene, the first act was nothing but doing. He was doing this sword fighting the whole time, and he took action. He was the guy with the plan. We're gonna do this. I'm gonna talk for you. I'm gonna write for you. And he visited her after Christian was killed. He didn't seem to want to adjust to his environment. He just wanted to. I mean, he did. I have to say though, he did accept that he was not attractive to women. So maybe in that sense, he was a beer. I don't know. Or maybe I'm confusing approach with growth.
Well,
Anyway.
and we also have to figure out what the story driver is, because that comes in. Anybody else have any? I mean, that was well discussed. Anybody else have thoughts?
So just as a point of clarification, because I remember you saying something about this, but I don't remember 100% well, and it would be good to refresh my recollection. When we're looking at doer beer, we should exclude his role as a protagonist,
Yes.
if he is such a protagonist, but we should also exclude what his job is, because his job may require him to do things.
But he did react quickly to insult rather than accepting it and saying, well, okay, I'll just, I'll be like Rick in Casablanca, Rick Blaine, the way he reacted to an insult was to just blow it off, I think. Whereas this guy just pulled out his sword and wanted to kill. So I don't know.
Did he really though?
Well, first thing he does is try to, talk him down. I mean, he engages in talking first,
Right.
but I kind of interpreted that as a doing thing.
Because his talking was attacking, right?
It's not. He's not like he's not internalizing. He's just he's just attacking back verbally first before he attacks with the sword, in certain cases at least.
Right.
So I would say that there are at least two instances, and Susan pointed out the first one, and there might be others. I lean towards doer because of where it puts other things, but with the actor on the stage, he did seem to come at the actor and want to close down the play, and that's changing the environment. And then at the end, we see him respond to the taunting about his nose, and that sets the stage for his being run over by the horses. But it's still, he goes after the guy, and he's not absorbing the taunting, and so those two instances indicate to me a personal approach of doer.
Okay. Anybody else have? Does that sound good to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Jim, are you good with that?
I'm fine. Yeah, this one was actually really. Usually, I come to it with like, oh, I think I know exactly what it is. This one was, it was really fun, but I have no idea what the story form is. So I'm listening, and I'll throw in ideas if I think of something, but I don't.
Okay.
There is a very Shakespearean flavor to this, of course, because the original play was written in the 19th century. But yeah, so given that, history, it's a little more, it's a little less straightforward for us to pick apart, I think.
Well, I think one of the things where you see that's a personal moment, where it looks more like doing is where his personal choice is. When they're in the shadows beneath the balcony, and he's feeding lines, and Christian is really just not, it's just not working well. He then just basically, it's like, okay, you move aside, I'll just do this.
Right, he stepped in, right?
Right, so he kind of steps in, and he, now the question is he in that point playing a role? Is he taking over the role,
Right.
of
Well, but
Christian?
that would beg the question of, is he playing main character role or protagonist role?
Well, I would think that this is probably not protagonist, because I don't think the overall story is necessary. The scene with Christian, it seems to be more subjective story than it does objective story, because it doesn't involve any of the other suitors.
Okay.
When you're dealing with the other suitors, then it's pretty clear what role he's in. But when it's really got this sort of love triangle, it's unclear. So I think the reason I brought that up is that it's not clear if every time we say, oh, he's a doer, and I think about the first thing he does, his preference is to not do anything about it, but to essentially put on a behavior that will cause the action. So he doesn't run up there and stab the actor. He basically is, he's putting on these airs of trying to, and threats, but not doing anything threatening. So that, and it's sufficient that it actually works, right? By the time he claps to 3, it's basically because his persona is so big that the guy's just frightened off the stage. But again, I could see it go either way. Yes.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was gonna say. But then is that him doing that as the protagonist, or is that him doing that as a main character?
And it's not clear. It's not clear because he does it in all instances, pretty much.
Right.
Yeah, because he does a lot of sword fighting, which really doesn't have much to do with the rest of the story, except it's just about him. Every time he's sword fighting, there's probably 30 minutes of him just fighting with a sword.
Here's a thought. I'm sorry. Here's a thought. Since one man served as the body and the other man served as the soul, maybe it was like a double protagonist in one, because there was a lot of reference to like, well, this guy died twice and I have to mourn this guy twice. And so I don't know, could there be like just like both Christian and Cyrano serve as one protagonist, since they were like two halves of.
No, I don't think so, because he's clearly the one who's moving the story forward. He's the one who is
Right. Okay.
charged with basically protecting Christian.
Right. Okay.
And also protecting he's supposed to be satisfying Roxanne, so he's the one who's writing all these letters and all this stuff. So he's doing, and he goes out every day essentially to deliver the post and to get intel.
Yeah,
So
I
he's
see.
definitely the one who seems to be the
right,
protagonist.
and Christian does die, so, and then that leaves him alone to carry.
Well, you could have it pass. I mean, a protagonist role can pass to another character. Can handle.
Oh, okay.
But it seems to be pretty consistent that he does seem to be the pursuit character, the one who's really sort of proactive in pursuit. So I'm just going to leave that one alone, because I just think it'll make more sense if we have it in context of the other domains. So I just don't want us to lock us in, and so we're not really considering everything. Okay, how about problem solving style? Is he a linear thinker? Oh, let me change the language here. It's like that. It's the older language. Okay, so is he a linear thinker or holistic thinker? And please give some examples.
Well, he does adjust to his environment. I mean, he since he can't pursue Roxanne directly, he figures out a way that he can be with Roxanne without actually you know, having to overcome his obstacles, which is holistic.
But I don't, okay.
Yeah.
Anybody have?
Well, okay, so Roxanne falls in love with a guy she's never even talked to, right? And but he Cyrano agrees to, you know, befriend the guy, and
Well, back up a step.
okay,
He is in love with Roxanne.
right.
Cyrano is in love with Roxanne before Roxanne, I mean, he's been in love with her forever, right?
Mhm, mhm.
Okay. So then she sees somebody who she thinks is her soulmate, and you know, who's only been there what, a week, and she's only seen him from afar, but she's smitten with him. And then she asks him to sort of look out for him, right?
Right.
And then the first contact he has with them is after he's been told, after Christian's been told, in order to sort of fit in, he's got to, you know, not
Prove his bona fides as a courageous
Yeah.
man.
Yes, exactly. Thank you.
Hmm.
Excellent. And so what he does is he starts making fun of Cyrano. And Cyrano's first reaction is to come after him until he finds out who he is. I mean, and I mean, he actually sort of ignores him, and then he finally starts to go after him, and then he finds out who he is, and it's like, okay, well, let's I can't do this, so let's make friends instead of you know, enemies. Can't kill him.
Can't live with him, can't kill him. Yeah.
Right. And what's interesting is that, you know, it's kind of like he's got to make sure that Christian, that Roxanne gets what she wants. And he can tell right away that Christian is not gonna make it. You know, he won't talk to her. He's afraid. He knows he can't write. He can't do anything like that. And so it's like, okay, so how are we going to do this? All right, I know. I'll feed you the lines. You know. So it's kind of like, okay, here's a problem. Here's a solution. Here's a problem. Here's a solution.
Okay.
It seems more of a linear kind of thing. It's just a really weird, you know, problem to have. And thoughts?
On this one, I let the machine. On this one, I let the machine pick it.
All right. All right. Well, let's leave it alone then. Okay.
Okay.
Fine with that. I mean, that rather than spend a lot of time on the ones that we not really sure about, just let them, you know, let other things choose. All right. Story driver, action or decision? Do actions drive decisions or do decisions drive actions? Give some examples.
Well, from the beginning, Cyrano decides to attack the man because he didn't like the play. And he decides to help Christian rather than kill him. And
but it does kind of seem that Roxanne's decisions are kind of things that drive the plot.
Right.
Yeah.
She just, you know, she decides she loves the man she wants, and she then, you know, asks him to protect him, and he decides, okay, I'll do it for her.
But then we do. But then again, there are some action because they were forced to go to war. They didn't get to decide that after Roxanne and Christian were married. The commanding officer ordered them to war.
No, that had already happened. Remember, they already that information.
Oh, okay, but it was still not a decision. It was like they didn't get to decide that, right? Or were they four? But they did decide to join the army, so I don't know.
Well, we didn't see the joining of the army. I mean,
Right. Oh, yeah, that's true. That's true. That's
it
true.
appears that everybody was sort of part of
Yeah.
it.
Most everything was decision based, I think, rather than action. Yeah.
Ultimately, it's certainly one of the big decision changes is when Christian says, "You go to her, tell her,"
Right.
and then he runs off and gets himself killed. That would not have happened had he not made that decision.
Right.
And I mean, that's one big one. Another one is when Cyrano decides to help Christian.
Mhm.
I mean, because that changes pretty much all of the actions that happen after that.
Right.
Because if he just said, "Oh, this guy he's a dimwit," I'm just going to let him shoot himself in the foot. That'll be the end of that one, and everything will just be fine. But he
Right.
doesn't. He
Right.
decides, okay. You can see him when he says, in fact, "Oh yeah, well, how about this? Let me put the words in your mouth," or whatever he says.
Right.
That's a huge shift in how things move forward, right?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes.
So-
And
so
Cyrano
just-
also, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, Susan.
Cyrano also decides to taunt the powers that be, which got him run over by the carriage in the end. So that was another decision that he didn't have to be so satirical, or he decided to taunt the upper crust, so to speak. And
You could also, well, except he taunts them the whole time. Remember, he's writing those
Right.
articles in the
Mhm.
magazine.
right, that's his decision.
Right. But the thing is that I think if you want to say anything would be a closing is Roxanne's sort of decision or choice to tell him that she loves him.
Mhm.
That they basically make that kind of a choice.
Mhm.
Seems to be the thing that allows him to sort of die.
Yes.
Can't say he's a happy man. I don't know, but it comes a lot too late.
Yeah.
Either way, it does seem to it does seem to be, oh, what's going on there? Did that just die? Okay, it doesn't matter. Anybody have an argument for action, or everybody okay with decision?
Well, so I think that the deployment to the front was an action. There was no decision there, nor was it set that they were already on the way to the front. That comes as something that moves the story forward. The appearance of the monk moves the story forward. And the action of reading the letter that Count de Guiche is coming to Mary forces the decision to go ahead and lie to the monk and use him to marry Christian.
Right.
But for that letter arriving and the monk being there, that marriage wouldn't have happened, which would have stopped the story there. At the end, I am not sure that the profession, her quote unquote decision to say that she loves him, or because it's more of a realization than a deliberation.
That's true.
But the action of his panache, his plume, he is going to go down fighting, and even if he has to be delirious, that is what allows the ending. He is vanquishing cowardice. Vanity is still coming at him, but he's a fighting man, and that to me seems and it's in accord with his being an independent man, even if he has to be delirious for it. And we see the counterpoint to that when Count de Guiche says, when he visits Roxanne at the monastery, and I'm paraphrasing here, but the price for my success is all those little disgusting things that I have, and the little decisions that I've had to make, while made me successful, are really a capitulation to the system, to the man, to not being virtuous. And so that fight at the end, I think is what closes out the story, and that's an action where he's fighting against his imagined enemies.
So what do you see as the opening, the inciting event?
The inciting event I saw as a calling out of the actor, because if it had not been for that, the actor would not have gone to his friends, his friends with swords on the side of the stage, to then ask for their assistance. And we see that back and forth a couple of times. But it is, there is no deliberation at that point on the part of our main character / protagonist, Cyrano. He is taking that action of closing down the play, and he is successful in closing down that play and getting that actor off the stage.
Okay.
That is
And
an
if he had-
action, but is that an action that actually sets the plot into motion, or is that just an action that helps define the character?
Well, so at that point, it sets up the next action and decision, which is the meeting with Roxanne at Rugano's, the bakery, because Cyrano's friend or captain says, Roxanne was looking pretty worried for you there. And Cyrano feels that, oh really, maybe I got a shot or whatever, and then Roxanne's handmaiden comes to the door and says, Roxanne would like to talk to you about certain things, and then he has to decide to go ahead and go forward with that.
I like
So-
that.
Where's the transition? Where's that first act break? That happened sometime in that conversation with Roxanne. I mean,
she tells him, he finds out that she's not in love with him, she's in love with the other guy. And then he has to decide whether or not to keep
reveal that she's seen someone that she's enamored of. Okay.
I was also going to say too, the guy that, he goes out on the battlefield for him, it's not like he decides and then he's killed. That's the forced action. It's him going out there to take his place is what then. Him getting killed is the turning point. Like,
okay. All
I
right.
would think.
I'm sold. I'm good with that. All right. So story limit, time lock, or option lock. And an example. All right. Yes, Jim.
It's an option lock, and there are only so many ways. What's his name can hide behind other people before it's finally revealed that he's the one.
Cyrano.
Yeah, that was behind everything, behind people,
Okay.
behind letters, behind everything.
That sounds good to me. Everybody good with that?
Yeah, that's pretty much what
I suppose if I wanted to get myself in trouble, I'd say there's only so many ways to make Roxanne happy, but I won't say that.
Yeah. Glad you didn't say that, Nick. Okay. How about outcome, success or failure?
Failure,
And why?
because he was in love with a woman and that love was never consummated. So he died. I don't know. She did profess her love for him, didn't she? It's hard to say. Oh gosh. I guess.
No. Okay.
You-
Don't
do-
second guess yourself.
Okay, I'm going to say failure because I guess in an optimal relationship they would have been married and had children. So By romantic standards, I'll say I'll go failure. Although there was
Let's stop. Don't yeah, you know.
okay,
Don't second guess yourself. All right.
Okay.
Anybody else? Everybody good with that?
Yeah, it was a close call for me, but that seemed to match the tenor of
Yeah.
the ending.
Yeah, I mean, true.
What would success look like? If this was a success story, what would success look like? Would it look like this?
No.
No,
No, they would
Nah.
she'd find out and then they would live happily. ever after.
Right, exactly.
Now, wait a minute. Are they first cousins or second cousins?
Doesn't matter. They're not going to be.
Did they dodge a bullet? I don't
they're
know.
they're
Anyway.
kissing cousins.
They're cousins, but they're not. That
Distant.
doesn't
He does say
necessarily mean-
distant cousins.
But it's also the 1600s, so I don't think that made any difference.
That's right.
Yes.
Can I ask
Yeah.
a question? Is this where the Roxanne movie differs? Is in the outcome and judgment?
No, once we're done with the outcome and judgment, then I'll talk about that because
Okay.
there's a.
I don't remember what happened, but I feel like it's a different.
It is a different story form,
Okay.
but I'll after we do these two, then I'll talk about that. Okay, so I think yes, I think it is failure, and then the question is, judgment good or bad, and why?
It has to be good, right? Because he did the right thing, and stood to his. I don't know.
I think it's good, and because at the end, he, although he has to be delirious to get rid of his angst, he fights. He's fighting it off, but he says, "I will go before God unstained with my white plume," what he considers his virtue is intact. He is honorable. He is his independent man. And despite all the attacks on him in various ways, he prevailed.
I
Yes,
totally
but-
agree, but it's a tragedy, right? And everybody's sad and crying at the end.
It sure does feel like a tragedy.
Yeah.
Like I totally agree with everything Nick said. That's why I was thinking good. But then when I started to say, it, I was like, oh, but it's a tragedy. Like,
Well,
It's not a personal. Does it feel like a personal triumph at all?
no.
It does to me,
Yeah. Okay. I mean,
and I think we're set up for it being a personal triumph.
I think
By
it's
the
supposed
geishes.
to. I think it's supposed to be a personal triumph, meaning here's this guy, he's finally rewarded. Okay, it's at the very end of his life. He's already basically, one foot in the grave, the other on a banana peel. And but he gets to hear that his true love has always loved him. And there's a realization that it really was him, and
Right.
granted it was too late, but
Right.
it's kind of like it was good that you hung on long enough to hear that, because you otherwise might not ever have gotten that satisfaction.
Yeah.
I mean, again, the failure magnitude of the failure is pretty significant compared to the really little bit of good that's going around. She certainly isn't in a good place. But he seems to be in a much better frame of mind. So I would say it's like a smidgen of good,
okay.
so it's not a full-on tragedy where everybody's miserable, but it is also not a, hey, I'm in a great, it's not a Rocky ending, which feels like it's actually a triumph, but it's not, because he actually didn't win. So, you can have that sort of the rheostat. So I think it probably is it is good for that, for the reason that Nick pointed out. But I agree, it's like, it's like a blip kind of good, not a happy ending
Yeah,
kind of
right.
good.
Right.
All right. So what I was going to say about a big difference, and this is probably going to be in the main character approach, driver combo thing.
Mhm.
In Cyrano de Bergerac, Cyrano is actually the one who comes up with the idea to help Christian, right? It's like,
Yeah.
so it's kind of like, okay that it's a failure, because he's kind of the one who let this thing go on as opposed to dying a natural death. So it's a little bit of, it's like, well, you kind of set this up and you kind of made this worse for yourself. So that there is a kind of a, but it also got the payoff at the end, but it's like at the end. In Roxanne, the Christian character, which has a different name, Christian character actually asks Cyrano to do it for him. And Cyrano says yes. So the dynamic is really different. So rather than him suggesting it and, sort of like being stuck with the scenario he already set up, this one he kind of buys into, but it's not really not of his own making. And so the ending, even though it's kind of the same ending, it just doesn't feel right, because it's like, well, you were actually helping it in an altruistic way, not in a sort of a self-interested way, because he was really trying to sort of still be romantic to Roxanne, even though he had this proxy person in between them. Right. So that's what's a really weird feeling at the end of Roxanne, because of that specific dynamic where he's the one who's asked instead of suggesting. So if you do see Roxanne again, watch that, and it has an interesting, it plays with the tensions differently because of that. Sort of like, which comes first, and if you reverse the order of them, suddenly it's like almost like a difference between a stop and a start story. It's like kind of like that kind of a feel difference, which way is it going?
Mhm.
And so just that's kind of the big thing that's different. That is a major difference. Kind of like the mistake they made in Scrooged versus Christmas Carol, where they kept the same story form, but they made all the arguments a stop character when he's really a start character. He's a miser and holding back, not someone who's just an abuser.
Right.
And in Scrooge is an abuser. He abuses his assistant, and so it's kind of like, but the arguments are all being made to him are all the same ones from the original. So it's like, what? This doesn't make any sense. So just you have to be really careful if you're going to translate a story. Make sure if you're going to make changes, that you make all of the changes that go with those changes, not just try to tweak one thing. All right, so let's go to the theme browser.
I think I have to bow out. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, fine.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sandy.
I definitely wanted to get through the outcome and judgment. That I was really curious how that was going to play out, but I do have to deal with things. So
okay, well, thank you, Sandy. I'm really
Thank you,
glad
Sandy.
you were able to join us for as long as you did.
and thanks for your explanations on the software updates.
Yes.
And Susan, email me anytime. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
All righty.
Been delightful.
Okay. Yeah. It's nice to meet you. So, all right. Thank you. See ya.
Bye.
Bye.
All right. So now we need to come up with the domains. And does anybody want to take a shot at any one of the domains?
Wow. Activity for overall, maybe?
Okay, and
Fixed attitude, huh? Or fixed attitude. No, not for overall. Oh gosh, this is so hard, isn't it?
well, it's kind of
Yes,
like
it is.
it's easiest if you have an opinion about one of them.
Yeah.
Start with that one, and then you can sort of jimmy it around to see if the other ones fit in.
Well,
But
when
if
I
you
was watching the movie, I was thinking, I was noticing that everything was doing. Everybody was doing so many things, sword fighting and playing roles but it was just all about activity. There and not I think for the overall maybe activity, because they weren't stuck in a situation, and not everyone was manipulating, and not everyone had a fixed attitude, but everybody was doing something. So I'll go overall with that.
okay, what kind of examples would you say that in the overall story that everybody was doing?
Well,
What kind of activities were they engaged in?
well, yeah, they were sword fighting and fighting wars, sword fighting amongst one another and fighting wars, and trying to get the girl, and protecting bakers, pastry chefs, and just the fooling people, fooling aristocrats. Everybody, I don't know, it just seemed like everybody was, and then aristocrats were plotting against Cyrano. So there just seemed to be a lot of doing.
Okay, well, now the plotting would generally be over in the developing a plan. Just as an FYI, it doesn't have to be. It depends if it's if it's an external activity, then that would be in the activity domain. If it's more of a planning kind of a thing, like
Okay.
that would be over in the psychology or manipulation.
Right. Oh yeah, I see what you're saying. Right, exactly.
So I just wanted to
This is great. I'm learning so much.
wanted to tease those two things apart.
Yeah, right. Okay. Okay. Well, all right. So
So
maybe it is manipulation, because there is if it's scheming, everybody, yeah, because Cyrano wanted the play to go his way, and then the aristocrats wanted Cyrano to do what they wanted him to do, and Cyrano was writing satirical articles about the aristocrats. I'm sorry, rather aristocrats.
things like writing articles, that's kind of a physical activity,
Okay. Okay. Well, I'll just be quiet and let you guys.
That's okay. No, I mean, I just literally have to think of, how do you go about that?
I'm just confused at this point, so I'll just be quiet and let you straighten me out.
Okay, Susan.
Yeah.
Nick or Jim?
Well, so the way that I approached it was, first of all, I looked to my main character and said, is there something unique about him? And immediately I knew the nose. And that does seem to be problematic for him throughout the whole show, which would put him in situation, and kind of answers the question, what would it feel like to have a nose this long? And the other alternative that I had for the main character was having a fixed attitude. And when I played them one against the other, because when you know that the alternative is the diagonal plays in the IC, the influence character, I didn't see Christian and or Roxanne as being in a situation, really. But I did see them having fixed attitudes. She definitely had a fixed attitude about what she thought the perfect love was going to be, and what she required of the perfect love, a bias that way. And Christian himself up until the time that he changes, he seems to have a fixed attitude. He barely lets Cyrano help him in the garden. He actually was not going to let Cyrano help him at all, because by gummit, he knew what he was going to do, and he knew she would embrace him, blah blah. And that didn't turn out so well. So that's where I pegged those two. Situation for the main character, because of his unique status of having a physical tag.
Yeah, that makes, yeah.
Of a large nose, and then the bias and or the fixed attitudes of courtly love or manly love in the influence character, and then after that it became a I liked the RS being the manipulations, because I saw that as being or playing of roles between the threesome, which left activity for overall story. And that's how I arrived at it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Jim? Yes?
Okay, now I have a really strong idea. Because obviously when I was watching it too, same thing. He's got the big nose, so it has to be universe, right? But he really doesn't have issues with that. Everybody else might say something about it, but it's not a problem to him. And so then I wouldn't, and then plus the other things don't really quite line up. The problem with the objective story and activity, it's really not the things that people are doing, as opposed to the fact that it's all their attitudes. So that, compounded with the fact that this is based on a play, and it has the feel of the objective story where it's the attitudes and the mindsets about love. And I really like Nick's thing about like that unrequited, or that love that's supposed to be there would have been the success if it would have resolved correctly. But that he is in activity, and specifically the doing, because it's the stuff that he writes. Like if you would just shut up and not be such a pain in the butt and write all this stuff that causes problems for everybody, then he wouldn't have been killed and people would have left him alone. But it's because of all the stuff that he's doing that is, those really virtuous things that he's doing, is what is his personal issue, but also his source of strength. So then it's the other, like the courtly sort of way of thinking, like, hey, these are all the things I have to do to be successful. And, what's his face, Christian, pretending to be him and playing along with everything. He eventually grows out of that to where he's willing to go onto the battlefield just like Cyrano would, right? So he grows out of that being or playing a role into the doing. And then I really like the relationship story, because what brings them together is the fact that, one, they're both in love with the same person, but one is attractive and one is not. One is in the place that the other one wants to be in, and they kind of like switch places, and they grow through that fact that the area of concern in their relationship, where the growth comes from, is their physical differences and their station and who's in charge of what, and that he actually, they both grow through that. And I would definitely put it in the upper right too, because to me that's
The upper right or the upper left?
the upper right. So like doing how things are changing.
Oh, you mean of the concerns. Okay.
Impulsive responses. I really like that, because impulsive responses is that whole first 20 minutes where it's like, how dare you say that? And oh my God, I can't do this. And then, let's fight and do all these things. The doing is all the stuff that he's actually doing, like writing the play, all the sword fighting. That's what I was saying, like that's very personal just to him. The playing a role with Christian, and then maybe there's a little bit of a handoff with the little guy that's like all the things I have to do. Showing like people who are comfortable lying and pretending to be something they're not, and not being that virtuous person that Cyrano is. And then the progress is, who's getting closer to um, Roxanne, and who's actually like, it's almost like they're both growing into a different place. And then that would be that to me feels really strong. So then I see his main character stuff as all the stuff that he's doing, but then him as protagonist is to really irk everybody, right? Like to get that impulsive response out of people. where he's just got his feet up there, and so that's it looks like him being, but it's him being as a protagonist in a fixed attitude through line.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly understand what you're saying about being a play, coming from a play, and that being very consistent with a lot of.
It just feels like it, right? Because it's like it feels like that place where what's being explored are people's attitudes.
Right, the haughty attitudes, the
Right.
superior, one being superior over the other, and
it's unrequited love. So the failure is that they don't get to be together. That situation does not. That's the consequence, right?
oh,
It's not quite unrequited love, but okay. It's
Well,
not
if you-
consummated love.
yeah, I was gonna say, if you think Stupping is the
I do. Yeah, I think that's very important.
Well,
I
that certainly seemed to be what
Christian thought.
Yeah. that seemed to be what he considered the success.
So I understand a lot what Jim is saying, but I still think that the intent of the author was that the nose is Cyrano's problem, and a lot of his reactions out of it and throughout his responses, his impulses responses are because of his nose, and that seems to be what is. I'm sorry, Jim. What did you say? Where the main character ended up?
Oh, in doing, because it's like all the
In
stuff that
doing,
he's writing and putting himself.
and so the I don't. So the Gazette, he does seem to be uniquely the only one we see writing the Gazette, but we do see lots of talk about other people writing plays and performing plays, and we do see lots of other sword play.
Remember, we're
going
looking for the source of conflict. So it's
Yeah.
not busy work, but if you want to try to hone in on the story form, it's like, where's conflict growing out of? That's really important to keep that in mind, because so in Jim's story form with the main character in activity, it would be Cyrano's activities are the things that are causing personal problems for him. So it's literally the things he's doing that create trouble for him. And if we see him in Nick, in your area, then we're looking at it that the problems grow out of. I'm not sure if you thought it was how things are changing. I thought you did, but I wasn't sure. But it's that his nose actually causes a personal problem. And if you the area of discrepancy between the two, because I like both of them, but the area of discrepancy I see is that the nose thing is such a big deal. I mean, it is at every moment of Cyrano having conflict, it is nose related. I mean, every single time. It's not like he has a problem with it. It's that it causes problems for him. Others not having a problem with it. Because I don't see, the one thing I don't see necessarily, I don't think impulsive responses is quite I don't necessarily like impulsive responses as the overall story concern, because well, okay, I can see that. If you're just thinking of the protagonist as here's the guy he's creating more irritation, but I don't generally think of that as a protagonist's job. That's usually the antagonist.
But it's specifically he's going against the system, right? Like he's the one that's standing up for what's right, and he's putting out everything. He's always trying to make stuff happen, right? And that's like the whole opening scene in that play. It's like, why is he doing all that stuff?
Right,
He's
but he
trying to,
tells
like,
us it's because this little twerp on the actor is looking at Roxanne in an unhappy way, or in a predatory way.
yeah. So he's like,
He's jealous.
yeah, and his impulsive, yeah, jealousy. So that's fixed attitude. That's mind domain stuff.
Right, that's subconscious, right.
Yeah, and it's all about like,
But that's the OS.
yeah,
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. Like, it's hard to see between him as protagonist and him as main character.
It is.
It is, yeah, yeah. I found
But
that
if
very
you look at
hard.
the failure, if the, like, what would the success be? Like the failure of progress, whatever sort of stuff is going on in French Revolutionary time, or I don't even know what time that was. Like a dress.
Franco-Spanish Wars.
Yeah, like,
Does that really help?
Sure. Well, I guess in that
Just
case,
before-
well, okay, well, hold on one sec. So if the overall story was an activity,
no, objective story, fixed attitude.
no, I know. I'm just thinking that
Okay.
but Nick's was talking about it being an activity, correct?
Right.
And which concern were you thinking of, Nick?
Yeah. So I came to the story late in preparing.
Well, what do you think? I don't, it doesn't matter if you.
Yeah,
No, I'm-
and so really, it seemed to me that in an overall story of activity, it did seem that there were problematic, either problematic doings or problematic obtainings, gainings or losings, but in
So okay, let's look at if it was obtaining, if it was doing, how would success be? What would need to be done for it to be a success story? I mean, if you don't think of anything, that's fine. We have another choice. I'm just trying to think. Is if that's going to be the concern, it means it's the story goal. What do you see as being, what needs to be done to have the overall story end in success?
keeping Roxanne happy.
But she is happy, more or less. I mean, the whole last act, was she in a convent or something? But
Right, yeah, she's in mourning in the convent.
for 20 years.
Yeah.
If it seems like if it's activity, that would it, a happy outcome would be marrying Roxanne, right? I mean, wouldn't that be?
And I think that would be obtaining.
that would be more of an obtaining, because marrying is sort of like
Oh, that's true. Yeah,
getting married.
right.
Well, she's already married, but it doesn't seem like that's even required. I mean, it would be closer to either a learning or an understanding kind of thing if she learned the true love was that, but that's not, again, love is more abstract.
Right.
That would kind of sort of be in there, so that if she didn't learn who did it, but she did learn who did it, but didn't really end in success, or she did understand, but that didn't end in success. That's my only.
Because
Go ahead.
if preconscious is the goal, then keeping her happy is him keeping holding all of it in, right? Like he got all this love for her, but he's got to keep it all in as long as he can because he loves her. That's the preconscious stuff. And he almost is able to do it, but then she puts all the pieces together, even though he's still like, no, it's not me, no. And then their relationship changes and progresses, but it's like too late.
Right.
Failure.
Yeah, it's because it feels better at the concern level in the way that Jim is talking about it than the domain level. It's a little too abstract, but at the concern level, it works better for me. Whereas Nick, the the concern level doesn't quite work for me, particularly in the overall story, because none of those seem to be a clear goal.
And here's the thing: if he didn't have the nose problem, he would still be doing what it is that he's doing, writing all the papers, doing all this stuff. That's not what the story's about.
No, yeah, that's a good point.
Right. He did, and it literally doesn't cause him any problem except for the fact that people like to make fun of it. But then he makes fun of it. So he turns it from a physical problem into a sort of a mental problem.
Right.
And you see him, you do all the wordplay and such, and it completely befuddles the person that he's who attacked him verbally.
Yeah.
I mean, there is, swordplay, but that's just sort of, that's what.
So the most emotional moment really seems to me to come, or seems to say, when he says, even his own mother wouldn't look at him because of his nose. And when he didn't have a sister, and that even when he had one girlfriend, he always felt that she was smirking at his nose.
Right, but those are all problems that are internal. They're all, like subconscious,
Main character.
Innermost desires kind of problems, or, contemplation. Those are all things that are internal emotional responses, as opposed to, sort of physical external responses. It's the turning away, ignoring, that kind of stuff. That's all very, as opposed to locking him up or shunning him, or all, which would be sort of the physical ways of excommunicating him. They do it all emotionally. But but the thing is, that's not, but that's almost making the main character. Right now, the two options we have for the main character are in either situation or activity, right? For the main character domains, the two choices. So they're, and I think an understanding or a learning kind of problem might be more descriptive, because they're more borderline internal, whereas I don't think that. Yeah, you can see the past.
Because like, if his nose gets better, he'll still have a problem,
Right.
So, but if he stops writing papers and he stops mouthing off, he has no more issues.
No, that's not true. He'll have issues. He still won't be able to be attractive to women.
If he didn't have if his
not
nose, if he had a nose job.
Yeah, that's not going to change anything.
Not
That's
for him.
not what the story explores. It's exploring the stuff he's doing. It's not like his nose is like growing bigger and there's like progress stuff, and his body's slowly deteriorating, or it's really not about that.
Well,
No.
so the story is not really about what he writes either, because that gets all of about probably at most 25 lines in the whole thing.
Oh wow. No, I think like absolutely his whole speech at the end, everything he stands for.
Well, and everything he writes for Roxanne.
Yeah. Like he's
Well,
the
yeah,
one
writing for
who got the
Roxanne is
skills.
not the cause of his problems. It's
Right.
writing. What Jim was referring to was, I thought, was his writing for the Gazette.
Yeah, both.
What causes the establishment to go after him?
Fully. That's one thing, and then also
But that's not, again, that's not main character, that's overall story. The writing for the Gazette stuff is well, no, actually,
he's got the sword and he's got the pen. So it has nothing to do with the pen being mightier than the sword, or the sword being mightier than the pen. He's just a skilled
craftsman.
Yeah. So maybe situation for main character just seems, because he's stuck. He's stuck in that situation. He can't get out of it. And I mean that, and that causes a conflict. That situation is what it's not his. Okay, you said something earlier about his mother didn't want to look at him, so it's not an attitude. It's nothing. It's not what he's not imagining that he has a problem. He does have a problem. So its situation seems the most logical to me anyway. He's manipulating, but the manipulation comes out of the situation, and that has more to do with other people than his own problem. Yeah.
So I have a question, and this harks back to, and I'm not sure if this is the right level to ask the question. At one time there was kind of a semi-test where you said if he moved between stories, he would take this problem with him. All right. And if he moved between stories to a different story, he takes his nose with him, and he takes the problems that his nose has. If he moves between stories, you actually have to set a certain type of setting for his writings to cause the problems.
Yeah, the obvious thing is that he's in situation. I mean, that is the most obvious, only because the other thing about him is his reputation, that he is basically an undefeated swordsman. There's nobody who's better than him, too. And that's another part of his situation that's that doesn't cause him a problem, but that definitely causes problems for him, because people don't want to attack him directly, which is why they run him over with a carriage as opposed to try to fight him with a sword, because that's
Man to man, in a manly way. And
Right.
fate pulled the jest by having him die in the gutter.
right.
He didn't die in the gutter, but he says in his speech to Roxanne, he says,
Right.
and that's the jest that fate had on me. I don't get to die in combat like a man. I'm paraphrasing, or sword to sword in duty and honor. I get run down in the dark street.
Exactly. Well, let's. Oh, God. So, if I'm more inclined to have a situation be our main character than activity.
Right.
I could, yeah. Just because I think in terms of what Cyrano is dealing with, it certainly does. Almost all of his personal conflict seems to come from his nose,
Right.
and it's kind of what's most remembered about the play. I mean, I understand, this is a play and such, but I'm inclined to go with situation. And then the question is, where do we put it? If that is the case, I mean, because I think both Roxanne, that idea of perfect love or whatnot, and Christian sort of having, I gotta, well, he sort of sees himself as not being, it's not worthy. He certainly feels worthy. He just doesn't feel like he's up to being the kind of person that she wants him to be. But the overall story, I mean, the relationship to me really does feel like manipulation, because it's all the role playing and mistaken identity kind of stuff. I mean, that's just sort of fits really well
Right.
there.
Right.
Now, the question is, it could also be the overall story, because if you look at other people mistaking, seeing this funny looking guy and thinking he's just he's just an anybody, and then they getting into conflict with him because he's they don't believe that he's could be this kind of person that he is.
Right.
I could see that because it's not the activities that happen in it are relatively minimal, and they really seem to be mostly with, apart from just some physical activity in the story. But you look at that first scene, and the whole first part of it is definitely seems to be more manipulative, more psychological conflict than it is physical conflict, except for the sword fight. The sword fight, they throw
Right.
that in. But even then, everything leading up to that sword fight is all sort of that psychological byplay.
Yes.
And the conclusion with the girls with the grapes. He's starving, but he's I'm only going to have this. I'm only going to have that.
And him treating her as though she's a lady, and that
Right.
having that effect on her. Right.
We also can see manipulation in the overall story when they're at the Battle of Arras with the Spanish, and Count de Guiche says, "Oh, I had to get rid of my white sash, so that way I could escape my pursuers who would otherwise take me as an officer that I am."
Yes.
And we see Cyrano setting up de Guiche for the reveal that, well, here's your white sash. Now you can use it again.
Right.
But the problem with using manipulation for the overall story is that what would you use for the relationship?
Well, the relationship would be an activity. And so if you think of, with the two of them, basically it's always either writing letters or giving speeches or,
Right. But it's
or not fighting.
Mhm.
You have the first scene, it's like, okay, I'm not going to fight you.
But what would be the outcome of that activity? I mean, it would be obtaining, right? And because they would try obtaining Roxanne's love for Christian.
I'm not sure yet. We haven't really talked about whether it's
Right. Okay. No, you make a really good case for manipulation in the overall story, but it seems that there's so much manipulation in the relationship, but it is an activity. You're right. There's activity.
Well, see, the reason I'd say it seems to be a little bit more about in the relationship between Christian and Cyrano is that it literally, the things that Christian can't do, he can't speak
Right.
well. He can't
Can't think on his feet.
and he wants to do things that he shouldn't be doing, like
That's a good point, right? I see what you're saying.
grab her or kiss her, and she's like,
Yeah, right.
don't do that.
Yeah.
There's a kind of a lot of you need to hold back some of that activity, because that's not gonna work.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good.
Jim, are you at all on board with that? I know you're no, you're not.
No,
No,
I
okay.
can see you.
But I'm good. You can keep going. You might as well just keep going and see where it turns out.
All right, so let's just try this. Otherwise, we'll just just spin our wheels all day. All right, so the one thing I also do like about this, which I also liked about yours, is that he's a start character, because he definitely feels like a start character.
Mhm.
And so that's why I'm not you know, they both fit in that arrangement that I'm pretty convinced he's a start character. He needs to wait. He's waiting for something to begin.
Right.
Definitely not waiting for something to stop. He's just trying to hold out long enough. All right. So in the domains, you were making an argument about impulsive responses, which would put playing role, how things are changing and doing. I think that works really well for, doesn't matter almost which domain you're talking about, because I think the combination really, I think it works quite well, you know, for even with Christian, you know, his impulsive response and later on Roxanne, but Christian, you know, he just wants to jump in and go for the gold. Very, very impulsive, you know, he picks a fight, you know, it's like,
Right.
just, okay, I'm gonna find the biggest target and try to elicit a response.
Right.
And then, you know, over the course of the story, that seems to be pulled back and further to the point where he actually changes and so that feels pretty good. I think for Cyrano being, Cyrano being progress, that one's a hard one for it.
Mhm.
I will say that I was really strongly tempted by repulsion and attraction for Cyrano. As themes and then prerequisites in works really well in preconditions for that. It's one of those things where I'm not sure that learning, you mentioned learning earlier on,
Right. Yeah.
and I liked that because it was better than anything I came up with as far as learning itself.
But what would be conceiving an idea? Well, apart from the opening monologue, what would that? How would conceiving an idea be the overall story goal? That doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
No.
Right, and that's why I kind of backed off of repulsion and attraction, but
I mean, it's very possible repulsion and attraction might pop up as a unique ability or a critical flaw.
that's true. That's true. So as far as the MC being with in evaluation of progress, or how things are changing, it does seem that that's a concern of his. In his, well, that's his protagonist role. As far as he does seem to be concerned about how things are moving along with Roxanne or not moving along. So he goes from no hope to worse than no hope. When Christian comes along, to all of a sudden thinking, okay, now I have an opening here, and then actually taking over the lines.
Wait, are you talking about, you're talking about conceiving an idea for the overall story concern?
No, I'm talking about Cyrano in evaluation, how things are changing, rather progress.
We're here. Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's where I was talking about. So he does seem to, that is a concern of his, and we see him dealing with threats from the exterior. We see him dealing with the fantasy that he takes as true, and maybe it was true, is that she could never love him with his nose, and that he had no shot. And then the fact becomes that at the end, after all these life experiences, she could love him, but he's dying. Um, um, security is only kind of briefly referenced in that, because he's a man who stands his ground and takes his stances. He's not successful. He's not successful in almost any way. And Roxanne says she's worried about, towards the end, she's worried about his old age condition and the fact that he doesn't have any resources. And we see at the start that he doesn't have very many resources, and in fact has to give away his month's salary in order to pay for the theater closing down refunds. But he's an honorable man. And so he is unsecure in the sense of the world.
Oh, you're talking about security. I see.
Yeah. So I see all those there. As far as him, in playing a role.
But again, how do we see? Okay, so playing a role, how is that the goal? Being, how does being a role, a goal, story goal?
Well, all right. So it's the interplay between being successful, which requires playing a role. To get what you want, you have to play the role, and not playing the role, which is exemplified by our protagonist, and the consequences of not getting what you might otherwise desire, because you're not willing to play the role. And we see that in the De Guiche, Cyrano counterpoints, one right after the other, where De Guiche explains to Roxanne at looking back on things, and up front, we see that he really does want to play the role of being Roxanne's lover, but he's not willing to sacrifice his honor, or what he sees as his honor, or his sense of virtues for that. We actually see that this is a failure story. So the goal is not achieved. What
Right,
would it
but
look like? What would it look like if he had succeeded? He would have been playing the role of a successful married husband.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah. Okay, this is not gelling for me.
Okay.
I want to, Jim, let me
Mhm.
let you try yours. I want to see what yours looks like. So you were saying that the overall story concern was impulsive response? No. Yes.
Mhm.
All right.
And then in skill, or do you want to just stay up here for right
Oh,
now?
no. Okay. Skill. All right.
And then his problem is cause.
Let's see. It's like the story engine. Okay.
Oh, and I thought of something too while we were talking.
What's that?
If you think of the influence character as Christian, right? Maybe that other guy a little bit.
Mhm.
The relationship's the love story. It's between him and Roxanne, and the fact that they're not together, and that they're using somebody else to put. There's somebody else in between them that is the go-between in their romance. Because then you can see that issue of security coming up. Because there really isn't an emotional, heartfelt, I don't think so. Between him and Christian, there's a practical sort of thing that they're doing together.
Right,
But I think, you look at the poster and it's like the greatest love story ever told, and we're
right,
not
right,
we
Roxanne.
love story in here, right?
Well,
And so-
that's true. But Roxanne isn't really a change character.
no, but I mean, you can have, you could have the obstacle character, or sorry, influence character change, but they're not actually part of the relationship story. You can have
Oh,
it,
I see what you're saying. Right, right, right. Well,
right?
he is, but he's not, right, but the passion really exists between,
Between her, but definitely Christian's the one that has the big change, right? Because he goes from like,
yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so why don't you talk us through this then?
Okay, so then as far as like the goal of impulsive responses, I think the idea is to keep it all under wraps as much as he possibly can because of that love for Roxanne. And so that's like where all that drive is coming from.
How does that involve everybody else in the story?
Well, it involves her because she's obviously a part of that too, because she's the one suffering from the fact that people are trying to keep that down. Plus, she has her own impulsive responses towards Christian, thinking that he's the one that's actually writing that. Um, and then Christian himself, same thing. He has to keep it down. He wants to run right up there and get together with her, but they're fighting that out, between the two of them underneath the balcony. And then all the other guys in the whole town, well, with the feathers and everything, everybody's just like ready to go at it. Like, how dare you say that to me? I will now fight you. And then they're fighting, and then they kill the baker guy, who's like, wait, I'm just trying to get home. Everybody is so quick to be like offended that's where all of the conflict is coming from. And so then that would be the concern, but then the goal of it is to try and keep that down as much as possible. And he's he even does it towards the very end. She just happens to like put two and two together, which is kind of also a change. Like if she goes from this hunch intuition as to, oh, this is my lover, and then she's putting pieces together, she's having the theory. So she kind of does that as well, in the same way that Christian's like, oh, you know what? Those two should be together. I'm going to go ahead and sacrifice myself and do this so that he can be there. So like they both do that change from like hunch to theory, but in the overall story, it doesn't get to theory. It's over to hunch, which is when she has that intuition that it was him and unravels his whole thing, right?
So can you talk about it sort of through line by through line?
Well, I hope I did the overall story because that was hard. The main character
Oh,
one,
no, because you're saying they went from theory to hunch, but theory is this,
the solution, so it never came into play, or it never
Right.
came into play. But so then her intuition is what. It's a weird thing. So it's like objectively, her intuition is what unraveled, trying to keep himself,
well, that's also, hunch and theory are also in the influence character and relationship. So it's fine if it didn't, not as I clearly just that one.
But and then I think they both have that change where they put the together. So then for him personally, it's the sword fighting, the causing a ruckus. That's why I like cause to me. I think there's even a line in it that where it's like you're always causing. That just really stood out to me. Like that was him always trying to force things to happen. And I'm pretty sure his last speech was about I stood up for the things and I caused all these wonderful things to happen, and whatever it is that he's going on about has something to do with cause, or like somebody who's being driven by making a difference.
Mhm.
And definitely his response, like his part in the whole story is to test everybody. And so then the whole story idea is like just keep.
But how is trust a symptom?
Oh, I don't know. What would be.
Okay, or because it's both in the overall story and in the main character.
Yeah, well, I guess well, if everybody has all these confidence, if the problem is like, I don't know, like
Or people
trusting.
aren't trustworthy. So
Yeah.
you test them.
Right, they're not, yeah, they're because they're manipulating, or they're creating, they're developing a ruse to
Right,
fool.
yeah, there's so many people prove
Yeah,
untrustworthy that you have to test them, right? And that,
So we see examples of that where?
well, you see that clearly in was it the cardinal and the folks around him, the other guy that wants to marry
De
the
Guiche,
Guiche.
Count de Guiche.
I mean, even to some extent, Roxanne's a bit untrustworthy, and she completely she misreads, or she
right, that
reads.
letter,
So
Right.
just so I'm clear on the OS, when we're looking at symptom, this is what characters in their OS shoes see as a problem outside of themselves.
So a good example is the new guy asks his boss, how can I prove myself? And so he says, well, you're going to need to sort of, because people don't trust
Right,
him.
he's
The new guy.
yeah.
So you
hasn't
need to
proven his foxhole.
you need to test yourself on someone, basically worthy of it, so that you can show your mettle. And that's why he tests the braggart who's telling the story. I mean, that's an example. In the scene that you were talking about, where the captain, or whatever he is, when they're out fighting the Spanish, and he's saying, oh, I can't, I lost my white, or I got rid of my white thing, he's clearly showing he's not trustworthy. And it's like, oh, okay, well, let's just see if he's gonna, how he's gonna play this off. And Cyrano tests him by saying, well, look, I just found this, is he gonna, what's he gonna do? How's he gonna, is he gonna, show?
So just so that I understand how that dynamic works. Because they're OS characters as opposed to like an individual. In this case, we would be looking at the protagonist seeing the Captain de Guiche as not being trustworthy, and so his response is to test him by providing the white sash again.
Right,
and it's not, and it's not
he's testing his, because he's the guy saying, trust me, and but it's a symptom, so it's being seen as a problem. So he goes, okay, let's just try a little test here, and
right. But in this particular scene, it's only a problem for one person. I mean, so only one person sees the trustworthiness of the captain as a problem, which is
right,
a protagonist.
but it is a problem. I mean, because this
right. But it's not a generalized thing where the whole company has to.
No.
Okay.
You can have any character do that. It can be, again, sort of it could be done by anyone.
Right, and so it's just a
mechanism.
Right, between trust and test that we need to see displayed one way or another by different casts in their OS capacity throughout the show. Until we find, yes, okay.
Yes. It's basically, if you just think of it in more objectively, is that the problem appears to be trust. Somehow trust is problematic, and the response to that is to test it, or to test something, try as a way to resolve the problem. Because if you've got something that says trust that's untrustworthy, then you test it to make sure is it in fact trustworthy? You know, and if it isn't, then testing will reveal that.
So another instance of that could be the De Guiche not trusting Roxanne's intentions towards him. So he tests it by sending the monk to say, this guy's going to marry us and I'll be right along to make this happen. And she fails the test.
Big time. Yes. 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 That would be an understatement.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah. And you know, and you've got catalyst of worry. I mean, I think that would be where you see her interpreting that, seeing that letter. It's like, holy crap, I don't want to marry him. Let's move things along really fast.
Here's what the letter says, and I'm not letting anybody see it.
Exactly.
And by the way, Father, there's going to be a big donation for you in this.
Right. Yeah, that moves it along fast. Okay. What did you have? What do you see as the benchmark, by the way?
I mean, it has to be.
It has innermost desires, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a love story.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and that's linear. Okay, so that reads right to me. Okay, yeah, so that, I mean, having it being innermost desires, that to me is where you get all of everybody's sort of lusting after Roxanne. And it's not the concern, but it is the way we evaluate how things are moving along in that through line. You know, how many suitors are still remaining, so to speak. You know, and it took down to the end, you have just one. You know, she's in mourning and, you know, off the market, so to speak, but that doesn't keep her last suitor from hanging out for 20 years. Okay, I do like that. It also means
It's courtly love, for God's sake.
yeah, well, I don't think that's what he was looking for, but maybe what he got.
That's right. So she was looking for maybe a little Lancelot on the side.
Okay, I can clearly see how with the main character of an issue of skill, I mean, he's got skill in spades, but it's not doing him any good. Which is
keep him alive.
It's keeping him alive, but it's also not getting him what he wants personally.
Right.
But it also, yeah, his unique ability, his experience. He even talks about that at the end. Gosh, what was it? But of course, critical flaw. This is a good place for his critical flaw of fantasy.
Yeah.
You know, oh well, you know, I can make this. I can. She'll love me for who I am and how I look, and it's like, yeah, well, maybe, but it's just a little too late. It kind of doesn't quite work. So you can talk about the influence character a bit, the through line, psychology or manipulation.
Right, isn't it? So it's Christian, right? And then maybe
a little bit of Roxanne.
Yeah, and maybe the guy that was talking about the kind of, manipulating, playing the political game.
De Guiche, Count De Guiche.
Oh
yeah, there's a little bit, right? So yeah, I mean, the playing the role, like kind of playing along with it, doing what is expected, I guess.
Well, certainly Christian ability.
He's playing the role of a lover. Yeah.
He's playing a role of a certain type of lover. He does not meet her qualifications.
Right. That's what I'm saying.
He doesn't have the ability to do it.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Right. The ability. Yeah. Hunch.
So his symptom, he thinks the problem is Oh, he keeps on, or what's trouble is he keeps on trying to sort of bring it to the end point. Just- he's kind of going for the gold right away, and that's causing him trouble. So it's kind of like, no, you have to look at this a little bit open-ended, it's not-
Right.
stop rushing it.
Right.
A unique ability of desire. I think in this case it's being desired. I mean, he certainly desires, but I don't think that's unique. I think it's the fact that he is the object of desire.
Yes.
And critical flaw of worth would be it's
Well,
know.
in this case, so because it's a failure story, doesn't the unique ability interfere enough with the MC, the main character, and so the critical flaw of the influence character does not come into nearly so much predominance?
Well, he's not, the worth, he's not, he's not as worth as much as he seems to be worth to Roxanne.
or worth as he thinks he is.
Or as she thinks he is. And if she finds out how much he's actually worth, then that's it. That's all she wrote.
Well, so it's a failure story, which means the unique ability is not successfully employed. So that the main character's
Right.
unique ability, which is the capability to sort of force the main character into a position of being able to affect the main story, that's undermined by the influence character's critical flaw. So
Right.
I'd say probably one of those things where he's
Chris, you said undermined by the influence character's critical flaw. Did you mean undermined by the influence character's unique ability?
no, the unique ability. So the influence character as a character is the one that's sort of forcing the main character to try. It is a pressure for the main character to change. This is a steadfast story, so he doesn't actually change.
Oh,
So that's what the influence character does. It's that alternative perspective. However, and the main character unique ability is the quality that allows the main character to have the story and its success. Now, the unique ability, his critical flaw is going to undermine that, and the unique ability of the influence character can undermine that as well. So the two of them, the main character critical flaw and the influence character unique ability, are the things that can basically overpower the main character unique ability. So the fact that he's the one that's so desired will, have an effect on our main character.
oh, I see. Oh, yeah, that makes a lot. I see that. Thank
And
you.
You're
Yeah.
welcome. And so the benchmark for the main influence character is changing one's nature, and we see that over time he actually
Dies.
well. No, he changes before he dies. So I mean, it's actually part of the nature of that thread that he changes, in addition to the fact that he actually also is a change character. But it's sort of thematically also about change, about his process of change, and we can see it as a benchmark for how that is going. And in that case, in that instance, I think you might see how Roxanne fits in a little bit there, especially in the last act where Christian is gone.
Mhm.
Now, what about the relationship through line? You want to read that through again, Jim?
Oh, so I would say the relationship is the love story. So particularly between Roxanne and Cyrano, they're cousins, right? And so he's known her for a long time, right? So they have that kind of thing. And didn't they have some history where she gave him something? I might be confusing that with something else.
Well, they grew up together, and they've always been really close friends.
Yeah, and so
But she's always seen him as a friend, not as anything more.
right,
A
and
relative. Yeah.
so there's a certain amount of protection in there, and like keeping that relationship secure, and those feelings there in that relationship are the hunch part of it. Uh, and I guess the expectations are, this is what she expects out of you. When he goes and he's all excited, puts the her assistant outside, and then gets her into a place, and he's all excited about, like, that's a very relationship story moment. And she says, "No, I'm in love with Christian." So then expectations are destroyed, and they have to determine, okay, where do we stand here? Like going back and forth as to friends, romance, friends, romance. And there is a relationship going on between them, but it's being used through, they have a proxy that goes in between them that actually makes that possible, because she is in love with him, right? Like she's in love, but she's in love with his words. And she makes that really clear at the end. It finally progresses to that place at the end when she's like, no, it has nothing to do with the way that he looks, even though he thinks that's what it's all about.
Well, it's because she sort of says at the beginning how beautiful he is, how beautiful Christian is.
Right.
So he's like, what?
And like the threat is almost just Christian. He's the threatening aspect of that relationship that kind of pushes it, makes it grow. But then
as well as the threat to Christian too.
And then as they start to become more and more enlightened as to what's going on, or actually no, probably the lack of enlightenment kind of slows things down. And then I guess the benchmark would be whether or not there's some kind of future, how long you can keep it going, all that kind of stuff.
So Jim, just real quick, since we're using the Roxanne Cyrano for the relationship, you would give a title to this relationship or categorize it as?
Oh, I would probably call it the love story, or lovers, or romantic, because there's definite love between the two of them, even if she doesn't know who's the one that's actually there.
So I put love story / triangle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it's really important. It's a triangle that's in there. Not all parties realize it's a triangle.
Which is specifically universe, which is specifically situation.
Right. You've got something that thinks it's a line that's really a triangle.
Yeah.
Got an extra dimension in there. What's going on with that?
Oh, and all the insecurities that go along with that.
Yeah, I think, for security, it's definitely insecurity. And the consequence of how things are changing.
Well,
So, go ahead.
I would say things aren't changing, right? And it's progressing. The more it progresses more towards Christian, the harder it is for him to keep that down. But then also it's a kind of a good thing too, because she's happy. So it's almost like a consequence that's already there.
It's getting worse ish.
Yeah, I mean, I guess from his point
So
of
the
view,
whole third act is nothing's changing. I mean, for 20 years, nothing has changed.
Well,
And we get a little bit of change at the last minute, but really the consequence is no changes in his life.
There was a moment of change when the handmaid came in, and did she hint that I don't know what, did he have a moment of hope, a glimmer of hope, until he found out that she was in love with Christian?
yeah, but I think Nick was talking about the end. So
Oh,
in other words,
sorry.
you've got the last act turn. The fact that 20 years have passed is
Yeah.
sort of irrelevant because we skipped all that time because nothing happens.
Oh.
So that fourth act really,
Oh, I see. Okay, got it. Okay,
for
thank
the
you.
fourth act, we pop in
Okay,
and the consequence, since it's a failure story, we don't end up with the goal is not successfully achieved, so we end up with a consequence.
right.
And it's the yeah, I see what you mean by it's sort of like a lack of progress,
Right.
where progress is sort of just dying.
Well, and they can't progress because he's dead.
Yeah,
Like,
right. And ultimately progress is just sort of stopped. Yeah. Okay, well, I think this is a good fit. I think it's one of these ones where the obvious fit, I still think there may be something there. I'm not sure that this represents the original intent, but it certainly represents what we saw.
Yes.
and I bet the Steve Martin one does him in universe. I bet that is the difference.
I bet that's probably true. Yeah, my guess is it's probably more of a modern take on it.
Yeah, for sure.
So where he's the situation character. Yeah, I think that's probably correct, which would be more in line with why they changed that dynamic.
Right? Which is it's a cool thing to see the difference. Because this is a hard one to watch nowadays because it's, so.
Well, yeah, it just there's a lot more storytelling than there is story.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a play. It's a play on screens.
Well, right, and I think that's also a problem because a lot of plays they're
It's all about the dialogue, right?
right because they don't you can't do a lot of physical things so much, and they're abbreviated because you don't have enough time and they don't have the conventions of
Right.
showing time progress apart from just 20 years later.
Yeah.
Hence why the screenplay gives us a lot of sword action.
No, seriously, yeah, absolutely. And then lots of scenes of dialogue.
All right.
Heavy bits of dialogue.
Heavy on dialogue.
Backed by music to let us know what the mood is that's happening.
Right. And for being it's sort of a story set in a war, that was probably the shortest sequence in the whole movie. The whole war thing. It's like, okay, oh yeah, that's right. There's a war, wasn't there?
Yes, there is.
Okay. Well, thank you.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you,
I learned
everyone.
so much from you gentlemen. It was great. Thanks. It's much clearer now. I can't wait to get back to my Storyform.
Well, I hope we see you next month or.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Fantastic.
Thanks a million.
Absolutely. Thank
Good
you.
night.
Good night.
Thanks, guys.
What have we got next month?
Oh, let's see. It says this is so October.
Gotta be scary.
Yeah.
Space Sweepers?
Yeah, I think it's a sci-fi comedy or something. I haven't seen it.
Okay.
But it got really good reviews, so hopefully it'll be good.
All right. Look forward to it.
Yeah, me too. I've seen this Cyrano, but it's been many moons.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. It was so long. It was a 2-hour movie.
Yeah.
That surprised me considering how old it was. I think they just took the play and just pretty much just did it straight. Because I remember from the play a lot of these lines. I mean,
Oh, okay. Yeah.
straight
I could
out of
believe
the
that.
play. Huh?
I could believe that. And it seems back at that time there were like between the 40s and right up to 55, 60, there were a lot of straight to film, just taking the play to the film with minor edits.
Right, right. Yeah, it wasn't until they got into the 60s where they really started to shorten it, want to do the double feature stuff and all that. I mean, and then what was it in this mid-70s when they started lengthening them again, so they didn't have to do the double features. Maybe a little bit earlier than that. Yeah,
It's all about economics.
oh, yeah, sure
You know?
is.
You still need to have the snack bar.
So have you guys seen anything good? Have you watched the Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones new versions?
No, I haven't yet.
Lord of the Rings.
I've seen some bad reviews on the is it the Lord of the Rings? I think, yeah.
Lord of the Rings.
And the I read the Silmarillion. I don't know that I'm really up for trying to see that on the film.
I think that may have been an inspiration. I don't think that's what they're doing.
Okay.
No, not at all. I couldn't even get past the first episode. It's really bad. Like really
Oh,
bad.
really?
Yeah.
I like it.
And Game of Thrones.
It's a lot of setup, though. I mean, it's a real lot of setup, especially
Yeah.
that first episode.
And then Game of Thrones, I strangely like, even though I also feel it's really boring. So I don't know. I kind of like it. It's so weird.
Well, I've seen the first episode. I haven't watched the others because we've been out of town like every weekend. And it was just so violent. I just thought, yikes. And absolutely no one to like. That's
Yes.
one thing. That's a big problem I had with it. It's like, there's no one I'm rooting for in this thing.
Yep. Yeah. I will say a great movie is Official Competition.
Oh,
I've never heard of it.
Penelope Cruz and Antonio Banderas. It's a I
It's a
think
comedy?
or no, it's it's straight out comedy, really funny about a method actor and basically your George Clooney type getting together to do a literary, a novel, an independent film, and she's the director. It's great. It's really funny.
Huh.
Yeah.
I'll have to take a look at that.
Yeah, I haven't seen.
you.
There's a bunch of new things. I'm watching a bunch of really sort of trashy things.
Good for you. Somebody's got to do that.
Well, primarily because I'm usually watching it when I can't really watch it. So I'm
Yeah.
doing the things. So I'm not worried about if I'm not really keeping up with it,
Mhm.
Yeah, I'm hoping, I mean, I like where the Lord of the Rings thing, the One Ring is going, or Rings of Power, I guess it's called. It's kind of going in some really, I mean, it's very different than Lord of the Rings because it's got all sorts of places that are like not even hinted at in the Lord of the Rings. So hopefully it'll start playing together more so. It's got some likable characters though. That's at least it's at least got that.
That's a plus in its corner.
Very much so.
Anti-Game of Thrones.
Have you seen all of the episodes of Lord of the Game of Thrones,
Yes.
House of Dragons, or whatever it is? And can you like anybody yet? Is there anybody?
Maybe.
What, 3 or 4 episodes in, and you're not even sure there's anybody? Whoa,
Might be
disappeared.
Person I like. Okay.
Wow. I mean, they had a lot of sympathetic characters right off the bat in Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Because then they started killing them off. But
No.
right now it's kind of like, well, I'd like that guy to get killed off, and I'd like that person to get killed off, that person to get killed off. Yes, that'd make me much happier. They're really, really horrible people.
That's an interesting way. First kill off the nice ones, and then you got the folks rooting for the other folks to get knocked off.
Yeah, well, this is just like,
Audience involvement.
yeah, they're just awful people. I mean, it's got some really, really brutal scenes.
Yeah.
One would say almost unnecessarily brutal.
Yeah,
But-
Summer left halfway in between the first episode. She refuses to watch it.
Yeah, I can see. I understand. Well, she didn't get to the birth scene, did she? Or is that
Yeah,
what?
that was where she took off.
Oh, yeah. That's just like that's pretty horrific.
Yeah.
I think that the whole jousting thing was there's like, you know, it's
Mhm.
it's kind of like, oh, I see. And basically, there's no rules, and there's no chivalry, and there's nothing.
Mhm.
Like, okay, that doesn't make a lot of sense. So why are these people hanging around together? You know, it's like, wow. Just,
Actually, I will say, how many episodes have you watched of it so
I've
far?
seen only one.
I will say the king actually grows on you.
Well, the king is, yeah, but that's because he's weak.
Yeah.
So he's very well intentioned, but he's extremely weak,
and
which
you
is
get
why all
the-
these terrible things are basically allowed to happen. Because he can't really, he's ineffectual.
Yeah, completely.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like, wow, okay, you got this, you know, someone who's trying to do the right thing, and it's just every opportunity thing's just going bad.
Yeah, you should never have been in charge, kind of thing. It's
Right.
like, that's not for him.
No.
But later on, they'll make him a saint.
Yeah.
Saint King
I,
Henry. or-
I suspect not. I think they'll make him mincemeat maybe, but they won't.
Well, and this is the out of all the families, this is the really creepy.
Yeah, the really creepy killer family,
Yeah.
which is the reason that basically they all got wiped out because they were just so awful.
Hmm.
Yeah. Except that, I mean, that was quite a few generations later. You know, that was like right before the Game of Thrones.
Hmm.
You know, a generation before the game, because those were all still the ones who were responsible for getting rid of the Daenerys's family.
Right.
Her father, I guess it was. It was the shithead. Who was crazy.
The crazy Mad King, right?
Yeah, Mad King, yeah. Gosh, I thought I'd seen something else. I'm looking forward to Black Adam. That looks really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm kind of tired of all these Marvel movies, but I do like. But Black Adam looks really intriguing. It's definitely not your typical positive superhero.
Mm-hmm.
He's more like a badass superhero that couldn't give a shit.
And I'm hoping Andor is good too, because Tony Gilroy is being
I'm hoping it is too, because it looks really cool.
yeah.
That one I'm looking forward to, because it doesn't look milk toasty.
Yep.
You know, that was one thing I didn't like about Obi-Wan. It was just a little, no, not Obi-Wan,
Boba
yeah.
Fett.
Boba Fett. Yeah, the Boba Fett one was just a little too, the backstory I liked. But then once he took over Mos Eisley or wherever it was, it's like, this is just, you know, sort of silly, boring politicking.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I did like how Ben Kenobi was all, I liked where that came from. Well, Obi-Wan. I really liked that. I liked how that developed.
Mm-hmm.
Although that little girl, like just jettisoned her, you know, Princess Leia, what a bitch. Oh my God.
You know I'm still recording, right?
Yes, I do. I do hope you, oh, you do? Oh, well, hopefully I'll clip it off.
And on that note, I'll say good night, gentlemen.
Yes.
And thank you very much.
Night.
Good night, everybody. I gotta go eat something.
Yes,
And we'll talk soon.
yes, and lunch.
Yes, lunch for sure.
My hand is disappeared. Lunch. There we go.
Night. See you.
Good night. Bye.